What's your biggest retirement question? Whatever it is, you'll find answers here. It's time for Ease into Retirement.
It's time once again to ease into retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. Get yourself onto the calendar, folks. Come on in for your very own complimentary written Freedom in Retirement Blueprint with Tom's team of advisors. 855-526-1600 to get started today with this complimentary consultation and conversation about your retirement journey at 855-526-1600. You can pop into one of the offices that's convenient for you, Anaheim, Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, San Diego. So he's got 5 of those great locations for you. Of course, they can do the phone conversation and Zoom as well, but you got to take the action for yourself, as we say each and every week. If you want some satisfaction, got to take some action here. So 855-526-1600 to get started today. That is 855-526-1600. Mr. Tom, sir, how are you today?
I am doing great. I know we're going to talk about Betty White in this first segment.
We are.
I'm feeling young today.
Nice. Yeah, Betty was awesome. Man, I wish she would have made it to 100. She came up just a tad short of being 100, but boy, what an incredible life.
What an incredible life. And
funny
you
lady.
Never saw her without that smile.
No, funny lady, and always seemed to be happy, right? And she loved her animals too. She was a huge animal advocate. And I know you love your puppy, and I love mine. And a little fun fact with that, Tom. Do you know animals can actually be allergic to humans, just like we can be allergic to some of them?
I tell you what, I did not know that. I hope that I'm allergic to cats because I don't like cats, but that's just the way
they
it
might
goes.
be allergic to you. You never know.
I know. We had cats when I was growing up on the farm, and oh my goodness, it took so long to feed them. And I do
on
like
a
cats.
farm though, they're great. They help.
They're
us.
great
rodent
because
control.
they help like unbelievable. Everything's got its purpose. My kids have cats. We take care of them. I love them. I just love dogs better.
I hear you.
You know, those dogs will come lay down on your leg, and just sit there and look at you like they'll lick you in the face when nobody else will. You know what I mean?
They give you that I'm just happy that you're around thing, and cats are more like, why are you bothering me?
That's exactly right. Yeah, just that personality.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about Betty because she was a huge animal advocate as well. We're going to do some retirement planning with some Betty White quotes, and she had some fantastic ones, some that were quite risque, which we won't be doing on the air here, but we'll do some other ones as well. And Betty loved to shock people, I think, sometimes with her sense of humor. But here's the first one for you, Tom. She said, I'm a health nut. I have a 2-story house and a very bad memory. So I'm up and down those stairs all day long. And I think that's something to think about because people obviously talk about, do we want to get a different kind of house? Or if you're feeling healthy, hey, maybe that is a good way to work out, right? But I think certainly the house and a 2-story becomes a lot of people's conversation in retirement.
Well, there's a lot of things in here to unpack, really. I mean, you need in retirement, especially if, you need just make the time to take care of your health, to walk, to take vitamins, to take whatever medicine that your doctor has prescribed for you. For whatever illnesses you have, you need to take care of your health. You're responsible for doing that. Nobody else is. And that starts with not just getting out and exercising and walking. Yeah, as hot as it's been sometime this summer, you don't need to be out during the heat of the day, but take a walk, enjoy things. You don't need to kill yourself. You don't need to be in the Mr. Universe contest or Miss Universe contest and for 75 years of age and older, but you need to take care of your health.
Sure. Yeah.
In that, I've learned over a period of time, this is something I've developed in encouraging people because we try to not just help people with their finances and indirectly that helps them with their finances, but I've encouraged people when you reach a certain age of about 65 or 70 and you go to the doctor and they give you 8 pages of printout of what they told you, the prescriptions they wrote for you, what they found when they did the test that they found, and you have all those pieces of paper. I've encouraged people to get a loose leaf notebook and start building it because many people, when they get to 70, 72, 73, they don't remember what they were treated for 5 years ago. They don't remember when they had a certain disease. But if you'll keep all those papers, there's value to those at times. And I learned that going through this with my mother-in-law and going through this with my father, because he would go to the doctor and not remember what the doctor told him. So, but if we had it all written down right there, and I think that's why they give it to you in the paperwork there, do it. But, more than health, sometimes it's your attitude. I mentioned earlier, Betty White always had that big smile on her face. And this attitude and the statement she made about being a health nut and having a 2-story house and a bad memory, so she doesn't remember how many times she went up and down the stairs every single day. All right, there's some things you just have to have the attitude that I can still do this. I can make myself do this. I mean, because when you quit doing it, guess what? You've stopped doing it, maybe for the rest of your life. I read a book recently. It was on finance, but it said it was actually on life. It was the 5 different pillars of wealth, and the book was talking about there's no matter how much you like doing something, no matter how much you enjoy doing something, there's going to come a time in your life where you do it for the last time. So you need to cherish all those things. So, man, every time you walk up the stairs, you get to the top, say, man, I did it again. Every time you go down the stairs, and you don't skip stairs and fall down the stairs, but you go down the stairs, you need to say, hey, I did it again. Take care of your health, but your health also, so many times, it is tied, Mark, to the attitude that you have. I know you.
Yeah, that's true.
You are an encouragement to me, Mark, because I know you've been through some issues from several different things
the ringer, yeah,
in the past year, and you've always had a positive attitude. You've always been laughing even through the microphone, and I just really think that your attitude makes all the difference in the world.
Well, thank you.
How you get old and how you've endured it, and you're not old, but how other people endure it and still thrive on it because they just approach it with the right attitude.
That's a great point, and I appreciate that. Well, I'm at the doorstep, right? I'm 55. A lot of our demographic, right, listening age, right, is 55, and 50, 55, 60, so on. And it is tough. Everybody has their tough days, and for sure. And, it's funny. I was thinking to myself the other day, I'm like, it's one thing after another. I don't want to be one of those people that every time somebody says, how you doing, you've got something to complain about. But dagnabbit, I sure do.
Yeah.
I'm trying hard not to, right?
I've always said, look, don't tell them what you're complaining about because, number one, 90% of the people don't care.
Yeah.
And the 10% of the people who care are just really glad you've got something because they've got something too.
That's true.
You just say, man, I'm doing great.
I'm hanging in there. That's right. Yeah. As we say in the South, or as you and I grew up in the South, right? Hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit.
That's exactly right. You can't get that sucker out.
Really disturbing when you think about it. All right. Back to Betty White here, by the way. So we'll do another one. That was a good job on that one, Tom. She also said, retirement is not in my vocabulary. They aren't going to get rid of me that way. And certainly, I'm sure over your 30 plus years, Tom, you've seen many people who are like, I'm not going to retire. I'm groovy to work. Now, are you working because you want to or because you have to? Different animal.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a different animal, and that's where we come in as financial advisors. Sometimes we tell people, nah, you need to go back to work because you really have to, because you just haven't saved enough money. The 401k hasn't grown enough. You haven't put enough into it. You haven't saved enough, and things haven't grown in your financial history. But a lot of people still just want to work because they don't have anything else to do. And some people retire and they go back to work. And I know 99% of you out there are saying, man, if I ever get to retire, I'm never going back to work. So did they. They said the same thing, but they went back to work because they were bored and they wanted to be involved in doing something. So be careful about that. And some people just want to work. You enjoy what you do. You're good at it. You're knowledgeable about it. It might be that you just keep working and enjoying it. I find, Mark, myself in that situation. I could easily retire. I mean, I don't need to work for the money. In fact, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but I don't really think about the money anymore as far as, will I have enough money to retire? I know I've got enough money to retire. I just enjoy the fact that I'm making an impact on our clients and that we're helping them with the philosophy we have at Mosley Wealth Management. I'm making a big impact on a lot of young kids who are in this business. I've got younger kids in their 20s and 30s who are able, by working with us, to buy a house. I've got some parents who are young parents and they've got 2 children and the wife can stay home, and because the husband makes enough money that the wife doesn't have to work. She could work if she wanted to. She's very capable of working, but she realizes that her best ministry right now is to raise those 2 young children that she's got. So, and people are able to do different things like that. Those are the kind of things that thrill me. I mean, every time when one of my guys gets a bonus because they've done really well for a month, I always tell the person who does our payroll, hey, man, that's great. And one time they said, well, that costs the company money. No, it doesn't. That makes the company money because that's why we're still doing it. Know your why, and it'll keep you from retiring sometimes.
That's a good point as well, right? So know the why. Tom, we often talk about the fact that retirement is a math problem, right? But I think it's also something you could do in English class or take from English as well. The who, what, where, when, why, right? What do you have and who do you have it with? Why do you have it? Or who are you doing it for, right? All those kinds of things. When do you need it? So you could certainly put that into that category as well. And of course, if you need help with those questions, that's what Tom and his team are here to help do. It's 855-526-1600 to get ready for retirement, to get a plan together, to get that complimentary written Freedom in Retirement Blueprint. 855-526-1600. Let's see if we can do at least one more, maybe two, depending on time here from Miss Betty. She said, people have said to me, Betty, Facebook is a great way to keep in touch with old friends. And at my age, I say, if I want to keep in touch with old friends, I need a Ouija board. Well, it's hard to maintain relationships as you get older. My mom's 85. Tom, it seems like she's losing a friend or somebody fairly often. And I can see how much it makes her sad. But it's part of life. And at the same time, she still has to have that social engagement, right? So that's a challenge too.
It is a challenge. And the Ouija board idea, I love what Betty White said there. I've got
she's funny.
The lady who was married to my dad is now 95 years old. And she told me a couple of years ago, she said, I'm 93. That's 2 years ago. She's still alive and still doing well. She said, I'm 93 and I think all my friends have died and I don't know if anybody will come to my funeral. So, that's one thing. That's your social board.
That's
is the
interesting.
Ouija board,
yeah. And that's scary for people.
Well, you got to stay together with like you got to stay up to date. Like one thing that this lady does, her name's Evelyn. She's on Zoom a lot with her family who are in South Carolina and Indiana, and she does FaceTime with them. So a lot of those things. And here's what you got to realize. The older you get, the more blessed you are. And one thing that Betty White said to sort of wrap up the segment, she also said the older you get, the better you get, unless you're a banana. And yeah, so
don't want to age like a banana, but yeah.
If you're to wrap up this segment, here's what I would say to you. If you're older, number one, don't be worried about finances. Come see us. We can build a freedom in retirement blueprint to give you that money freedom so you don't have to worry about that. But here's some things that I would encourage you to do. Smile a lot. Have a sense of humor. Okay? Be active, whether it's in your neighborhood or go to your church or go to your synagogue or your mosque or, like be on Zoom, be on FaceTime with your friends and your loved ones. And even some of you who maybe are not 95, but, you might still work a part-time job just to be active. Stay in the game. That's what Betty White did. Her favorite movie for me was that Sandra Bullock movie where she acted like she was getting married up in Sitka, Alaska. I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, my wife loves that movie.
The Proposal or something like that. But she's like almost 90 years old when she's doing that, and she was the star of that whole movie. Be the star of your family's movie when you're 90 years old because you got that smile, you got that humor, and you stay active. That's what I would encourage you to do.
Well, and if you'd like some help with the financial side and even some of the other pieces, right? The team often wears multiple hats, if you will, because they've seen other people go through some of the struggles that happen in retirement, the social circles, or what to do with myself now that I'm retired. It's not just the X's and the O's. Certainly they are important, but the team is here to help, and all you got to do to make that happen is reach out to them at 855-526-1600 to get started today with your Freedom in Retirement Blueprint. 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. This is Ease Into Retirement, and there's more to come after this. Back here for the second quarter of Ease Into Retirement with Mr. Mosley, Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management, serving you here in Southern California. Tom's got 30 plus years of experience in the financial sector, and he's got a team of advisors waiting to help you and support staff to create that seamless experience for his clients. And if you'd like to learn more and see if they are a good fit for you, reach out to him today and get started with your own complimentary written Freedom in Retirement Blueprint at 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. That's the number to call to get things started. Don't worry about having all your details in front of you. Just take the action for yourself. The team will find you a time that's convenient for you in a location that's convenient for you and help you get things pulled together to come in for that consultation. Their onboarding process is fantastic, and they can certainly help you through this process. But you got to reach out. That's the part you got to do yourself. 855-526-1600. Again, 855-526-1600. And Tom, we're going to talk about boomers a little bit, baby boomers. I'm going to guess that this is pretty high, but since I'm a Gen Xer and more of us are at that age where we're starting to reach out to financial professionals for help, what percentage of your client base would you say is probably baby boomer? Probably the majority, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it would definitely be the majority, but think about this. I've been doing this 31 years as of June. June the 8th was my 31st anniversary of doing this. So when I started in 1995, the oldest baby boomers were turning 50. So they weren't looking really to retire. They were sitting there, many of them with a pension that they had from earlier, and they also had a 401k. So they were the double dip generation, but they were getting ready to retire, and they started retiring, about 2010 or so when they got a little bit older. 65 was the year plus or minus when baby boomers. So yes, in the past 15, 20 years, the majority of the people have been baby boomers, but I'm a 3-generation advisor if you want to look at it that way.
That's true.
Because
yeah.
I worked with the greatest generation when I first started because they were the ones that were 51 years of age and older. And then I also have now more than 50% of our new clients that are coming in are like you, Mark. They're Gen Xers. Gen Xers are those people who were born in 1965 and north of there who are looking to retire. So the majority of, because of when I did most of my real growth in my business, but the majority would be baby boomers, but that percentage is shrinking and Gen Xers are now taking over.
Sure. Yeah. And there's, we're the smallest generation as far as the Gen Xers go, but, certainly part of that conversation with the boomer thing too is this, this massive generational wealth transfer that people have been hearing about for a while now. Some of the the biggest transfer of wealth in history, they're saying, right? Something like 40, 50, $1 trillion worth of money being transferred as the boomers are aging out and transferring that to their kids, which may be Xers or even their grandkids, right? So interesting challenges there. What kind of challenges do they face, by the way, that you've seen through your many years for boomers?
Our main office here in Anaheim is on the second floor of a building that has 3 banks or credit unions on the bottom floor. And it's not uncommon for me to come into the office sometime, maybe if I've been to lunch during the middle of the day and come back. And it's not uncommon for me to see a Brinks truck or an armored truck out there. And the biggest challenge that people have when they take money to the bank and then that money from the bank goes to wherever the Brinks truck takes it, if you understand what I mean, is that transfer. Because during that transfer, that's usually when people try to hit it. So when I walk in, I always try to give them space because there's one guy carrying the money and there's one guy sitting there with his hand on his pistol. You understand what I mean?
You probably got to get the shotgun too. Yeah, so.
Right. Now, let's go back to the wealth transfer. And I've seen some numbers that put it north of $100 trillion. I saw one number, and I don't know how they calculated it, but they said it was $121 trillion that will change hands between now and the year 2050. So that's a lot of money in the next 25 years that's going to change hands. And that's when it's dangerous because there are a lot of people that are lurking out there. Some of your family members are lurking to get more than their share. Some of the robbers are lurking to take advantage of the fact that you've inherited with computers and technology. People know when you inherit stuff, okay? And they know when you have stuff to pass along. And there are always people willing to, quote, help you, if you understand. I'll carry that money for you, so you got to be careful for who you do work with. And there's your aunt and uncle. Know who they are, Mark? Uncle Sam and Aunt Iris. She spells her name IRS.
Or Aunt Irma.
Irma,
Irma,
that's your ugly cousin Irma that was from the first marriage of Aunt Iris. And Irma is what you pay in Part D and Part D for Medicare Extra, which may be up to $600 a month for Part B and maybe well into the hundreds for Part D. So there are all kinds of people during that. So that's what you got to look out for if you're a baby boomer and you're transferring wealth. What are the things that are how am I going to do this the right way? And how am I going to do this the wrong way? Here's another thing that's happening. A lot of baby boomers, I recently had a couple in my office, and they had moved. They were here in Orange County, and they had moved about 5 years ago to Havasu, and they came back, And when they come back over, they like to meet with us in person rather than on Zoom from Lake Havasu. We've done that kind of reviews as well with them. But they sat there in the office and she kept looking at her watch. She would look at her watch about every 2 minutes after a while. And finally I said, Sue, do you guys have some place to go? Now, mind you, he's 76 years old and she's 73 years old. And Sue said, yeah. She said, we got to go help his parents. And I said, his parents? I said, he's 76, you're 73. How old are his parents? They
90s.
were both in their upper 90s,
Yeah.
okay? And being the real wise, seasoned financial advisor that I am, I asked the stupid question. I said, are they in a home? And she said, yeah, they're in their home. We've got to go help them clean up some things in their yard, okay?
Yeah.
So here they are in their 90s.
I mean, kudos to them for being that way, but yeah, that's a lot of work.
Well, most of the time when they're in their 90s, and I've already said on this show already, I've got the lady that was married to my dad when he passed away 12 years ago. I take care of her, and so I'm also taking care of grandkids, and I'm also taking care of my kids in some way. So the baby boomers, you ask about, some complexity of their financial situation. Many times they're in a sandwich generation. They're still taking care of elderly parents, but they're also taking care of their children and their grandchildren who've come back home. And they've also faced a financial change in our landscape. When the greatest generation came through life, many of them, when I first started, it was common for people to have a pension or to be covered by their spouse's pension. 63% of the people, the adults in America, were covered by a pension, either their own or their spouse's pension at one time in American history. Now it's down to 16%. All right. So we've gone from almost 2/3 of the people had that guaranteed income for life. Now only 1/6 of the people have that guaranteed income for life that most pensions do afford people, and for the surviving spouse if they take the pension the right way. That's why fixed indexed income annuities that were always shunned and talked poorly about, that's why they're coming back into vogue. And every year they have a 40% or a 30% increase in the number of people who are seeing the value of those, because those fixed indexed income annuities, if you use them the right way, they will pay you like a pension in that it'll give you guaranteed income for as long as you live, even after you run out of your money. And if it's your IRA or 401k that goes into it, you can even cover your spouse if they survive you for as long as they live. Wow, that's a pretty good deal. Okay, that's what a fixed indexed income annuity will do for you. If you pick the right one, you use it the right way.
All right. Well, we're talking about different challenges and things for baby boomers and the generation that, all the stuff that they're kind of facing at this point. And certainly there's a lot of stuff going back and forth, about the different challenges. And, we even threw out IRMA there, for example, right? So how your income is structured can affect that, things that you're just not often thinking about because you don't do this every day, right? So in general, Tom, you kind of touched on my second one there. In general, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see the boomers make? Aside from not having a strategy, that would obviously be the biggest one. Is there a particular pitfall is it around taxation maybe, or what's something that kind of sticks out?
It's a whole myriad of things, Mark. I mean, many of you who are out there and you're really happy that you've got $800,000 or $900,000 in your 401k, but what you haven't realized, to your point, Mark, if you're out there and you're proud of that 800 or 900,000, that's great. I mean, there's nothing to shun about that, but it's not all your money. When you start taking it out, you're going to have to pay Uncle Sam a portion of that, and because it's going to be taxed at regular income. Not only what you put in, not only what your company put in, but all of the growth of that is now going to come out as regular income. You say, well, I don't need it. I've got rentals and I've got other accounts. Well, guess what? The government needs the money. So now the age is 73. When you get to 73, you're going to have to start paying required minimum distributions, RMD. I'll break that down and tell you what that means. It's required, there's a minimum, and you've got to distribute it every single year. So that's a really big deal. Plus, I just mentioned in the previous question, I mentioned you saw your parents with that pension that paid them an income for life, and you likely don't have that. So you've got to come up with that 800 or 900,000, and you've got to dedicate a certain portion of that to what's going to come in from Social Security, and you've got to dedicate that gap between what you need for income and what Social Security will provide. You need to turn some of that into income-producing vehicles, whether it be a fixed indexed income annuity or an income strategy or dividend-paying stock. You've got to have a plan for that. So it's really important that you do that. Third thing, how do you take care of long-term care if you have to go into a nursing home, or if you're some of those who are married who are out there and your spouse has to go into a nursing home, or you need home health care. So there's a myriad of mistakes that people have by thinking, well, man, I got a lump sum of. Well, when you're 40 years old, your lump sum matters. When you're 50 years old, your lump sum matters. But when you're 65 years old, there's a transition that takes place when you walk out and retire. And the biggest thing in your retirement is your income. Making sure that you've got enough income to pay the bills for the rest of your life. Therefore, the biggest question people have when they're retiring is, are we going to run out of money before we die? So a lot of mistakes you make by not focusing on the right thing. Your lump sum can go down if it's invested in the market, sometimes 50%. But if you've invested it in solid income-producing products, whatever amount you need for that, then you've got a plan. You can take what's left over and go play. We call it your paycheck, securing that paycheck, and your play check, go play with the rest of it.
All right, folks. Well, if you need some help with that, if you are a baby boomer or a Gen Xer, you're just approaching retirement or even into it, and you're thinking, I need to get a plan or a strategy or a second opinion on the plan that maybe you already have in place, whatever that might be. Take some action, find out for yourself, see if Tom and his team are a good fit for you. That's a great thing about coming in for that complimentary written Freedom and Retirement Blueprint. It's not designed to turn every listener into a client, but certainly make that opportunity available to see if it's a good fit for both parties. And they're happy to help you. They got 5 locations all around the Southern California area, and of course could do the Zoom conversations as well to get started. So take a little action, reach out today. 855-526-1600. That's 855-526-1600. There's no cost or no obligation, so there's no reason not to pick up the phone and reach out today and get started. 855-526-1600. Keep it tuned here. More to come after this. Back here for more of Ease into Retirement with Tom Mosley, founder at Mosley Wealth Management. Find the team online. Lots of good tools, tips, and resources at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's mosleywealthmanagement.com, MOSLEY, wealthmanagement.com. Lots of good stuff there to check out, including the seminars tab with all kinds of events in the different areas there that they serve. And you could RSVP to one of those if you'd like to through the website, or you could call the number 855-526-1600 to get started. And Tom, hopefully they won't get lost on the way there. That's going to be our topic, is getting lost. It's easy to do, especially before we had GPS at our fingertips every 6 seconds. You're driving someplace you've never been, you could get lost, or maybe you're hiking out in the woods in some of the lovely scenic areas in California, and you get a little lost. It happens, right? So let's talk about how you get back on track, and we'll use that analogy from a financial standpoint, along with just in general, like getting lost in life. So bad tools, for example, I just mentioned GPS. Certainly there's bad tools financially speaking as well that can get you a little messed up. I think oftentimes about like those projections on 401k statements, for example, right?
Yeah, those kind of things are projections on Social Security statements or those kind of things. It's like having a compass that's not really working right, or a GPS and you get out of range and your GPS won't pick up the signal. Those are the kind of things. You're using bad tools. Maybe for retirement, it's an online calculator. And I want to really warn you about this too. I jokingly say in my seminars that if you see it on Facebook or you see it on the internet, it's got to be true. Okay, that's a joke, all right? It's got to be true as a joke. And so you got to be careful.
Isn't that what Abraham Lincoln said? Everything on the internet's true?
Yeah, I think, including, he just knew. He just either
knew,
or Al Gore said that, one of the two of them, okay? But the online calculators, they're just so rigid, and they don't take into consideration other things that might be impacting your life that a real person who's going to sit down with you and talk through is going to go through. So and here's another thing. It's really becoming popular. Let me get on the AI. I call it Charlotte because I don't like ChatGPT, so I just use the word Charlotte.
Okay.
And Charlotte, I tell my wife, I asked Charlotte, and she told me, because that's when I use it. I get on it. But you can't trust that 100%. The other day, it gave out some financial numbers, and then I asked it for a different question in a different way, and it gave out the same financial numbers, and the numbers were different than what it had given me about 5 minutes earlier. So you got to be careful. Income projections, and the biggest thing I see is that when people make projections, they say, well, I've got $1 million, and if I take $20,000 out a year, then I've got 50 years worth of money there. Well, you didn't consider that, first of all, things don't go linear. The prices are not going to stay the same because of inflation. That money that's invested is going to go up and down in the market. If it goes down 50%, your program is sort of blown up. So that's a bad tool. You got to make sure the tools you're using are the right way.
Yeah, we're all using AI in different ways for things, to your point. But, like I was laughing the other day because it still can't spell strawberry correctly. You ask it how many R's are in it, and it says 2.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into account the first one in the straw part. So it's always something. You got to kind of just double check things, right? You do a little bit of vetting. There's nothing wrong with getting information out there, but just make sure that you're double checking that so that you're not possibly using a bad tool. And same thing can be said for bad directions, right? So it's, somebody in life might tell you how to get someplace, and you're thinking, cool, why would they tell me something wrong? But maybe they just gave you bad directions. The same thing can happen in retirement strategies too, is like maybe you're working with somebody who's not thinking about all the things, Tom, that you're going to have to deal with. They're just thinking about the accumulation side, for example, and they're giving you directions based on that. Maybe not on taxation, maybe not on Social Security strategy, so on and so forth.
Hey, I've had people in my office just in the past few months, and this one particular person I'm thinking about, this couple had over $7 million. And their advisor that they've worked with for 20 years won't help them at all on taxes. They won't touch the idea of taxes. It's bad direction not to have thought about your taxes and how much you're going to have to pay in taxes. They won't help them with tax loss harvesting. Like if you've made some money over here, but you've lost some money over here, you can sell both of those and zero that out and have no tax liability. It's a tax loss harvesting tool that we use. And who are you getting your direction from? Is it a broker who's self-interested, doesn't want to do Roth conversions because once you pay the tax, he or she, they don't get to bill you on what you paid in taxes, but yet all of the money that you've got left in a Roth IRA, if that's the right thing for you to do, all of that money is tax-free if you play the game the right way. So be careful for your broker, be careful for your brother-in-law, be careful for Bob at the water cooler, and be careful for Brenda in the break room, because they're all giving you advice based on maybe what's in their best interest or maybe what they've learned, but it could be bad directions if it's not what's best for you.
Yeah, and just in general, Tom, just make sure we're paying attention, right? Another way we can get lost is just not paying attention, whether that be hiking and you miss your trail, or in retirement, you make a mistake or you're just not keeping a lot of track on it. So with that said, because based on time, I want to get to how to get back on track. So let's pivot to now we've gotten lost. How do we get back to where we need to be? What's the first step?
If somebody calls you up on the phone and says, I'm lost and I can't get where I'm going, the first thing you're going to ask them is not where they want to go. You're going to ask them what? Where are you right now?
Describe where you're at to me. Right.
Right. So where are you now? What road are you on right now? Well, I don't know. Well, go to a cross street and give me the cross streets of those two streets. And once you have a determination of where you are, let's bring it to the financial, okay? The first thing you've got to do, and the first thing we do when we start building your free complimentary retirement blueprint when you come in to see one of our advisors, is we start with where you are right now. Now, once we get that established, and that's pretty easy to establish because it's all on paper, or it should be all on paper. Once we get that established, the next question is, where do you want to go?
Right.
Because once we know where you are, we can clear it. And there may be more than one way to do it. I like, when you get on Google Maps and I'm going to an event in Claremont, and I'm at my house in Placentia, it'll usually give me 3 different ways to go. And I'll be honest, if I've got a lot of time, I'll probably go through Carbon Canyon because I just like to take that drive. Yeah, there's a little traffic for a while, but it's just a beautiful drive, and I'll see wildlife, or I'll see something going on. Or when you get past the little village there, you see cattle on the right, you see a golf course on the left. It's just better than seeing taillights on the freeway, if you know what I'm saying. So where do I want to go? And that's important. Well, where do I want to go when it comes to financial? When it comes to a financial question, it's what do you want your retirement to look like? And how do we get there the best way? Well, we can go this way. It costs less time, but you might not have as much enjoyment. That's my analogy there. And that's why you say, well, wait a minute, I've never been there before. Well, you can just totally trust the maps, or you can get some help. And that's where we come in. We've been there before. Even if we haven't retired before, we've been there with thousands of other people where we've said, where are you now? Where do you want to go? Here's the plan to get there. That's our Freedom in Retirement Blueprint. So if you feel like you are lost financially, don't throw up your hands and say, I'm lost, I'll always be lost. Call us, sit down with us. We'll help you figure out where you are, what you want your retirement to look like, and we'll build a plan with you to get you there. But you've got one responsibility in all of this. You got to pick up the phone and call us.
Got to get that ball rolling. 855-526-1600. Take that first step towards retirement, or maybe get a second opinion on the first step you've taken at 855-526-1600 to talk today with the folks at Mosley Wealth Management. 855-526-1600. And don't forget to check out the seminars tab again at mosleywealthmanagement.com and RSVP to an upcoming event. Just click on the county that you live in and the events you'd like to check out and RSVP to. No cost or obligation either way. mosleywealthmanagement.com or 855-526-1600. More to come after this. Cruising down the home stretch this week on Ease into Retirement, as Tom and I usually do, with questions that have come in to the website and the team from all around the Southern California area. And of course, Tom and his team are helping folks all around the Southern California area. And all you've got to do to get some help for yourself is reach out to them and let them know you'd like that complimentary written Freedom in Retirement Blueprint of your very own at 855-526-1600. Get your questions asked and answered. 855-526-1600, or find them online as well and drop a line into the team at mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's mosleywealthmanagement.com. You can get some time on the calendar, come out to one of the 5 locations, and talk about your retirement concerns, your pain points as you're getting near or into retirement. 855-526-1600. They got an office in Anaheim, Arcadia, Encino, Ontario, and San Diego. And of course, they serve all around the Southern California area. So reach out to them today. All right, Tom, let's get started. See if we can help out Mike a little bit with a useful nugget or two of information. He is in San Clemente, and he says, Tom, I'm nearing 50. And so far have always done my own investing outside of what's already available in the workplace plan. But as I get closer to retirement age, it has me wondering if I should pursue a financial advisor at this point. How much control will I have over my finances if I choose to work with somebody like you and your team? And Tom, I think this is great from Mike, because at 50, I've been saying this for a while, we start to kind of wake up to maybe I better get serious about this, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people come to me and they say, I'm 50. I'm not, the kind of person you probably want to work with right now because I have not saved anything for retirement. I've been raising kids, buying a house, getting my job established, and career, and now it's like a light goes on at 50. It's almost like, the 2-minute warning. I used to have Lakers season tickets, and Lawrence Tanner, the voice of the Lakers, would say, 2 minutes,
right, yeah.
And it's like everything in the building, just the energy just got up because there was 2 minutes to go in the game. And that was back, when you expected Kobe to make the 32-foot shot right at the end, those kind of things. But there was energy in the building because you knew you were getting close to the end. Well, 50 seems like that's where people really get serious. And I think it's like you get the job done in some ways. You get the kid job done, you get the other things done, and so you get ready to save. So Mike,
it's like to me, it's like the unofficial kickoff to retirement, much like Memorial Day is the unofficial kickoff to summer. It's not actually summer, but you start getting geared up, right? You're ready to get it going, and I think at 50 we kind of go, oh.
Yeah, it's almost like you in track. I mean, just think about so many analogies here. In track on those long races, just because the crowd goes to sleep, and sometimes the runners do too, when they pass they're on their last lap, they ring a bell. The bell rings, and it's like everybody on the track picks up the pace because they know it's time. Mike, you might find yourself in that position. So you've been a do-it-yourselfer, what we call a DIYer. And that's good because let me tell you what's happened. If you're 50 years old, if we rewound your life back to 2009, if we went back to you were 33 years old, and you were facing a Dow Jones that was around $6,600. And let's say you didn't really know what you were doing, but you just put your money in something that mirrored the Dow Jones. Well, this week, the Dow Jones has pushed over, it's well over 50,000. It's usually in the 52, 53, maybe even 54,000. I'm not exactly sure where it will end this week as we're recording this show. But, that's almost 9 times what it was. At least it's 8 times what it was. And so you've been a genius and you've been a do-it-yourselfer, but really what you've been doing is you've just been riding the wave. What happens the next time we have a 2000 to 2002? Where the market went down overall during that period about 47%. What happens when we have the next September of 2007 to March the 9th of 2009, where the market overall went down 54%, a little bit north of 54%? Well, if you've been trusting the market as a do-it-yourselfer, then you think, well, man, I'm a genius. I'm really out here doing things the right way. As you reach 50, 55, if you have accumulated assets, that is a great time to start transitioning and saying, I need to define these assets. I need to take some of the assets that the market has made me, my 401k has made me, and let me address my income when I'm in retirement. Let me look at what my Social Security is going to be. Let me look and see if I have any rentals. Let me see what other income I might have coming in. Is there a gap? Let me fill in that gap. Let me start securing my retirement income. Yeah, even well before you get to retirement. And then also, how much money am I going to have left over? Do I want to buy a boat? Do I want to buy a house in Havasu? Do I want to buy a house in Arizona, in the mountains of Arizona? Do I want to do some of those things? Do I want to move to Flagstaff? And do I want to move to Oregon? You say, where do you come up with those things? I've had people do all of those things within just the past 6 months because they had the excess money in addition to the income for life that they've already addressed to have that extra money to go build a plan. That's where the do-it-yourselfers, or I even have coined a term, the DFYers, where it's done for you. Your 401k did it for you, the market did it for you, and you did really well by just living in the market and just by being there. But now you've got to build a plan, and it's a plan that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life. So now's the time to move forward. And I think you need to work with a financial advisor just because they've done it before, they've been there before. Even if you come to somebody like us who offers the advice for free and then you decide if you want to work with us and we decide if we want to work for you, I think it's time for you to look to somebody like that. And then it's your option as to how much input you still have on it.
All right. Well, great question, Mike. Thank you so much. 855-526-1600. Go talk with 1, 2, 3 advisors. Find one that resonates and makes sense for you, that you get the right feeling for. Trust your gut. Do some vetting. Go to places like, Broker Check or FINRA.org. But sit down, have a conversation, and see if the team is right for you. And, of course, Tom and his team are here to help. And that's for anybody listening, obviously. 855-526-1600. Over in the Julian area, Paul says, Tom, my brother-in-law seems to think the stock markets will crash by Christmas. One of these. If he's right, where should I stick my money for now? The age-old question, Tom, especially when the market continues to do crazy things, move itself up. At the time we're talking, it just had a banner day, yesterday or the day before. And it's like, when's the shoe going to drop? We're always wondering about that.
Paul, if your brother-in-law knows that the market's going to crash by Christmas, he's smarter than I am.
or anybody.
Anybody. The Dow Jones that we just mentioned, that's around 53,000 right now, it could be at 58 by Christmas. It could be at 46 by Christmas. It could be outside of those bounds even. I don't know what's going to happen in the world. I don't know what's going to happen in the financial market. I don't know any of those things. I just know that if you've got a plan, let's talk about your roof. Your roof should be good for sunshine, and your roof should be good for rain. And if it's not good for both of them, then you're not prepared.
Yeah,
and
you need a strategy. Yeah.
You need a strategy.
Yeah.
You need a plan. That's the freedom in retirement blueprint. The freedom to know. Think about it, Paul. Mike told us he was 50 years old. I don't know how old you are, Paul. Let's say you're 60 years old and you're going to retire in 5 years and you're going to live for 25 years until you're 90, which is not uncommon right now. If that happens, in 25 years plus 5 years of still working, there's going to be a lot of ups and a lot of downs and a lot of sunshine and a lot of rain in the market. Yeah. And you need to have a roof, i.e. a freedom in retirement blueprint that will navigate the rain and the sunshine no matter what comes. Because I got news for you. People ask me all the time, do you think the market's going to go up or down? And I always say yes. It's going to go up or down, and given time, it will go up and it will go down.
Multiple times.
Have a plan. Yeah, sometimes in the same day.
Sometimes the same day. Well, you know what, Tom? When somebody says, "Where should I put my money right now?" Is this where you go? Okay, let's do a risk analysis. Is this where we kind of take a look and say, "Why are you that concerned? Do you have too much at risk?" Is that kind of how you guys back into this question a little bit and start testing things?
Maybe, but maybe risk. Let's end the show with this by really going deep on this question. Maybe it's not a direct risk analysis, but it's a timing analysis. Okay, because we have people. Let me give you for instance. Sometimes we have people who come to us and they say, I just sold my house in California. Mm-hmm. I want to save $800,000. I want you to keep it for about 6 months, and I want to move to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, some of the places where there's no tax, or Oregon, or Washington, or Idaho, all of those places. We have clients in like 32 states, and they've all started in California. And so they want to move, and they say, well, I would like for you to invest my money, that $800,000, and maybe grow it by 4, 5 to 10%. In the next 6 months. Can you do that? I say, not comfortably. They say, what do you mean? I said, you are going to need that money in 6 months. I don't know if the market's going to be down 10% in 6 months, in which case you're only going to have $720,000. You ain't going to be happy with me. Or it could be up 20% and you could be at $960,000. So you've got to understand, if you need money in the short term, it's not so much risk, Mark, as it is what's the timing as to when I'm going to need that money. And timing as to when you need the money, money for income is something you need to keep at a really low risk, really low volatility, really close at hand. Timing on money and market investment on money that you need 3, 5, 7 years from now, you can take a little more risk in that, because the market may have its dips and downs, but over a period of time, it's usually going to have some good ups as well as some downs. So you've got more time to recover if there's a downturn. So it's more, when do you need the money, Mark, than really the risk level that you're taking initially.
All right. Well, everybody's situation is different, and everybody always has concerns about what to do, what's the right move for them. And oftentimes we tend to make the wrong move when it comes to our finances, especially as we're getting close to retirement. So getting a second opinion, a second set of eyes, a sounding board to work with, to bounce some things off of, a strategy is, becomes more crucial than ever. So reach out to Tom and his team today, serving you here in Southern California at Mosley Wealth Management, and get some time onto the calendar. Thank you for the questions this week. As always, we appreciate them. 855-526-1600 to get your questions asked and answered about the pain points that concern you. 855-526-1600. Again, 855-526-1600. For Tom Mosley, the founder at Mosley Wealth Management, I'm your host, Mark Killian, saying thank you so much for your time this week. We will see you next week here on Ease into Retirement.
𝗪𝗟 Wealth Management is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through 𝗪𝗟 Wealth Management, Inc., MWM. 𝗪𝗟 Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership. License number 0K76766. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal, and any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. 𝗪𝗟 Wealth Management, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by 𝗪𝗟 Wealth Management. This radio show is a paid placement.